What do you think was your worst experience while locked up?
It was heavy, man. I had to sit in front of a clock and look at 6 years elapse off that shit.
The wildest part of Mystikal's story isn't that he went from New Orleans neighborhood battles to topping the Billboard charts. It's that at the absolute height of his fame, one decision sent everything spiraling into a nightmare that would haunt him for decades. Dude even had the effrontery to record himself forcing himself on a woman. Man seemed to be shooting for the stars, but turns out he was the man. Ironic, derogatory word. Here is how Mystikal lost it all. From New Orleans to the top of the charts. There's certain stories in this hip-hop game that hit different. Stories that make you sit back and really think about how fast everything can get snatched away from somebody who is on top of the world. But the story of Michael Lawrence Tyler, the cat the whole world came to know as Mystikal, nah, this ain't just some cautionary tale, fam. This is a straight-up tragedy that's been unfolding for damn near 3 decades. One that got us asking real questions about fame, accountability, and what happens when your choices finally catch up with you. We talking about a dude who went from putting in work for his country in the Gulf War to absolutely dominating the Billboard charts, a rapper whose signature raspy voice and unmatched energy made him one of the most electrifying MCs Southern hip-hop has ever seen. And yet, as we sit here today, Mystikal is behind bars, waiting on a trial that could have him locked up for the rest of his natural life. How did homie fumble the bag this hard? Well, to really understand that, we gotta take it back to where it all started. Michael Lawrence Tyler came into this world on September 22nd, 1970, in the 12th ward of New Orleans, Louisiana, a city whose rich culture, the brass bands, the bounce music, all them Southern traditions, would eventually mold the artist he was destined to become. His come-up wasn't easy, though. It was marked by humble beginnings and some real heartbreak. Young Michael was raised primarily by his pops, a hardworking man who ran a small corner store in their neighborhood, grinding to provide for his family the honest way. But tragedy struck when Michael was just 7 years old. His father passed away, leaving a void that would shape the young boy's hustle and mentality in ways that would echo throughout his whole life. He attended Walter L. Cohen High School in New Orleans, and it was during these formative years that Lil Homie started planting the seeds for his musical future. Michael caught the bug for breakdancing and spitting rhymes, eventually adopting the name Mystikal Mike as a teenager. The energy, the showmanship, that raw aggression that would later define his music, all of it was being cultivated on the blocks and in the community centers of New Orleans during this pivotal time. After he graduated from high school, Tyler made a decision that would set him apart from a lot of his hip-hop peers. He enlisted in the United States Army, serving as a combat engineer during the Gulf War, Operation Desert Storm. This wasn't just some footnote in his story. Nah, it was an experience that fundamentally shaped who he was as a man and as an artist. The discipline, the intensity, the ability to go hard under pressure. Them qualities the military instilled in him would later translate directly into that commanding stage presence he became known for. When he got back to civilian life, Tyler went all in on chasing his music dreams. His big break came in early 1994 when he got the opportunity to open for legendary acts Run DMC and Doug E. Fresh at the Treme Community Center in New Orleans. His performance that night caught the attention of local producer Leroy Precise Edwards, and just like that, he signed with the independent label Big Boy Records, operating out of nearby Kenner, Louisiana. His self-titled debut joint, Mystikal, dropped in 1994, and while it was mainly buzzing locally, it was enough to get the major labels paying attention. Jive Records came knocking, re-releasing elements of the album in 1995 as Mind of Mystikal. But it was 1996 when everything really changed for the homie. That was the year he made the move that would catapult him to national prominence. He linked up with Master P's No Limit Records empire. Now, for y'all who wasn't around during this era, you gotta understand what No Limit represented in the mid to late 90s. Master P had built an independent powerhouse that was literally reshaping the whole landscape of Southern hip-hop. And Mystikal, with that explosive energy and distinctive voice, fit right into that machine like a glove. But there was something about the No Limit way of doing things that didn't sit right with Mystikal's artistic vision. In his own words,
that definitely was my worst effort. Cause I'll just say that. I mean, it was a good album. I say it was my worst effort because I had to rush it. You know, P had a pace, man. P had a pace. He was like a Ford dealership. He was producing them cars. He was putting them out.
Despite the grueling pace, Mystikal released Unpredictable in 1997 and Ghetto Fabulous in 1998 under No Limit, both of which achieved significant commercial success. But even as the money rolled in and the accolades piled up, there was a restlessness within Mystikal, a desire to prove himself on his own terms. And then came the split from No Limit. But contrary to what many assumed at the time, Mystikal has always been adamant about one thing.
2000, yeah, right before. I did not leave No Limit. Let's set the record straight. No Limit left me, man. I showed up for work and looked around there, boxes and shit, saying they ain't here no more. What the? Hey. No limit. Nah, I was in Atlanta. I was actually recording a song the album with Shake Your Ass on.
What happened next would represent the absolute pinnacle of Mystikal's career. Free from the constraints of the No Limit machine, he linked up with one of the most innovative production duos of that era, the Neptunes. The result was Let's Get Ready, an album that debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 in September 2000. The lead single, Shake Your Ass, featuring Pharrell Williams, became an undeniable smash hit, peaking at #13 on the Billboard Hot 100. When asked about what that experience was like, creating such an iconic track with Pharrell, Mystikal described it as pure magic.
Tell me, what was the experience like making Shake Your Ass with Pharrell? Because Pharrell's one of my favorite producers, and your energy combined with his producing skills, what was that experience like?
Like water and electricity together. You're not supposed to put that shit together. It was just, phenomenal. Pharrell is a creative catastrophe. You know what I'm talking about? So, when we combined our energies, it was dope, man. And it was real fun.
What's particularly fascinating is how the creation of Shake Your Ass was actually fueled by competition. Mystikal has revealed that the song was actually born out of his desire to respond to Juvenile's massive success with 400 Degrees.
I was recording that album because that's when fucking Juvenile hit. Lord have mercy, Jesus. Lord, Jesus. 400 Degrees. You might well sit your ass, you ain't finna fuck with him. Sit down. So that was, and we competitive. So I'm like, man, how the can I just, he is killing it. He was just like me. He was something you never heard of. He was fresh, he was new. It was like, and Shake Your Ass came out my fucking mouth.
The follow-up album, Tarantula, dropped in 2001 and earned Mystikal Grammy nominations for Best Rap Album and Best Male Rap Solo Performance. He was everywhere, on the radio, on MTV, even expanding into acting with appearances in films like Kiss of the Dragon and Taxi. He featured on Ludacris's massive hit, Move, in 2002, a song that still gets crowds moving to this day. Mystikal had reached the mountaintop. He was one of the biggest names in hip-hop, a household name whose music transcended regional boundaries. But what no one knew at the time was that his world was about to come crashing down in the most devastating way imaginable. And that brings us to the summer of 2002, when everything changed forever. The first fall, prison, culture shock, and attempted comeback. On the night of July 3rd, 2002, a 40-year-old woman who worked as Mystikal's hairstylist arrived at his Baton Rouge apartment for what should have been a routine appointment to braid his hair. What allegedly transpired that evening would forever alter the trajectory of his life and career. According to detailed police affidavits and arrest warrants, Mystikal accused the woman of improperly cashing checks from his account amounting to approximately $80,000. Along with his two bodyguards, Leland Pokey Ellis and Versi V. Carter, he allegedly used this accusation to leverage the woman into performing sexual acts, threatening to report her to authorities unless she complied. According to official documents, the entire encounter was videotaped. After the incident, the woman immediately sought medical attention and reported everything to the Baton Rouge Police Department. Detectives executed a search warrant on Mystikal's home, and they confiscated the incriminating videotape. The footage, according to official court records, confirmed the victim's account of what had taken place. Mystikal, Ellis, and Carter turned themselves in on July 18, 2002. Each was initially charged with aggravated rape, a felony in Louisiana that carries a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole, as well as extortion, which carries a penalty of 1 to 15 years imprisonment. Mystikal posted a $250,000 bond and was released, while his attorneys publicly denied the allegations. But the videotape's existence made any denial essentially meaningless. Facing the very real possibility of spending the rest of his life behind bars, Mystikal made the decision to plead guilty on June 26, 2003. The charges were reduced: sexual battery instead of aggravated rape, along with extortion. His bodyguards also pleaded guilty to sexual battery, and the extortion charges against them were dropped. On January 15, 2004, Mystikal was sentenced to 6 years in prison for sexual battery. The judge, after privately viewing the videotape, determined that this was the appropriate punishment. Mystikal was remanded into custody immediately and sent to Louisiana's Elaine Hunt Correctional Center. He was also required to register as a sex offender for life. Ellis received 3 years, and Carter received 4 years. The victim also filed a civil lawsuit, which was reportedly settled out of court for $350,000. Mystikal was denied parole in 2006 and ultimately served the full 6 years. When asked to reflect on that time in his life, particularly what the worst part of the experience was, his answer revealed the human cost of his choices.
What do you think was your worst experience while locked up?
Just being away and being away from my children and missing those those beautiful years of my children growing up. When I left, they were 2 and 3 or 3 and 4, something like that, man. 3 and 4 years old. And I remember sitting them down at 3 and 4 years old, trying to have a heart to heart, try to explain to them. I said, listen, I remember telling my daughter, I said, Michelle, daddy might gonna have to leave for a little while. I'll be gone for a while, but I'm coming back. I am coming back, and daddy love you and miss you. Daddy is coming back, okay? Okay, she probably forgot that shit 10 minutes later, but I did that with my children, man. I remember doing that shit. That shit was tough, man. That was tough.
What's striking about Mystikal's reflections on his time in prison is how he describes both the weight of what he endured and the mental fortitude it required to survive.
I ain't really had those problems. And when I did, I always nipped it in the bud. I did 6 in the can, but I'm not a man. I drunk it like a 6-pack. And that I all day, my chest got big, but I didn't get a 6-pack. Man, they know I'm bored. Look. Man.
On his time in prison, he's also spoken about how he spent it.
You had to do 6 years in prison. Now you're ex-military.
Right.
So you're Mystical. You're still a rapper.
True.
Now, we spoke to T.I. T.I. said when he had to do his stint sometimes, people try to check him.
He said he got tried once.
He said he had to fight somebody. You ever
got 2 different cats.
Right.
Yeah, I ain't,
Nobody ever tried you.
For what?
Right.
Yeah, they wanted to hear a song or something. Most of the people that were fans, man.
But you got haters in prison too. They like,
sometimes people get their stripes from trying to attack.
I don't rock like that. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
And he's ex-military.
On January 14th, 2010, Mystikal was finally released from prison. He had served his time. He had paid his debt to society, at least according to the law. But what awaited him on the outside was a world that had fundamentally changed during his absence.
When you come out of prison, was it hard to readjust back to society again?
Boy, I was in such a culture shock. The best way I can explain that, if you ever seen the movie, I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. When the pimp got out and he had his fish tank shoes on, platform shoes, and that's how behind the fashion power curve, behind the culture curve, behind the music, man, I was up. Man, I was lost.
What was that transition like when you came home from doing a 6-year bid?
Culture shock. I was culturally up. The dress, I didn't know how to dress, I didn't know how to talk, I didn't know what the slang was. I was disconnected. I came home looking like the pimp. I'm gonna get you. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, I was throwback for real.
Yeah, but I mean, who would you say helped you re-assimilate back into society?
The people, my circle, the people around me. Nobody want to tell me nothing.
The Breakfast Club interview painted an even more vivid picture of just how disoriented Mystikal was upon his release.
Well, you considered an old man out here.
For real, man. I came home after doing them little 6 years. Little white boy jumped on my head, riding on the skateboard, with iPod listening to Lil Wayne. I'm like, man, what the hell? Man, felt like I, just got out of a time machine or something, man.
So you're officially YMCMB.
And when it came to fashion, the disconnect was painfully real.
How was it coming home? Were you still financially good?
Yeah, I was cool. I wasn't financially great. I was good. I was able to pay my bills. I think I was just more culturally behind. Oh, my outfits, man. I think my first outfit, I couldn't wait to come on and wear some Iceberg or Coogee or something, whatever was popping.
Oh, no. These look like dude.
I'm telling y'all what happened, man.
Okay. I'm about to say. I thought you were telling me what you went and bought.
That was what I was imagining. My Pradas and I was ready to get it in, looking like the pimp on. I'm gonna get you, sucker.
Yeah, with fishbowl heels on.
Rap store, looking crazy. Yeah. I shook back though. Y'all see I'm fly.
Despite the challenges of readjustment, Mystikal was determined to rebuild his career. He headlined a Mardi Gras concert in February 2010 and began releasing new tracks. And then came an opportunity that seemed like divine providence. Cash Money Records came calling. Now, the irony here was not lost on anyone who remembered the history. Back in the day, No Limit and Cash Money were bitter rivals. There was genuine beef between these two New Orleans powerhouses. But time has a way of healing wounds. And as Mystikal explained, the connection with Cash Money actually predated even the No Limit era.
And actually, Cash Money and No Limit back in the day were did not like each other at all.
Kind of like. Well, I was beefing before that because when I was a solo artist, up and coming on a local label, we were kind of had a little beef thing going on.
That's crazy. So was it weird to you that they would come to you?
Yeah, how did that happen?
It was all love. It was all love. Yeah, we was in communication for a while. Since I was on No Limit, Baby was, calling me saying, "What's up? What you want to do?"
Wow.
And there's no way that Baby or Wayne could be in New Orleans and not grow up and be a fan of Mystikal.
True.
It's impossible.
True, and vice versa.
In 2011, Mystikal officially signed with Cash Money Records, dropping the single Original featuring Birdman and Lil Wayne. It seemed like the beginning of a genuine comeback story. He featured on tracks with various artists, including Mark Ronson's Feel Right in 2015, and toured internationally in 2016, but the demons of his past were far from finished with him. A pattern emerges, from bad to worse to potentially life behind bars. If Mystikal's release from prison in 2010 represented a chance at redemption, that opportunity began slipping away just 2 years later. In February 2012, he was arrested for misdemeanor domestic abuse battery following a dispute with the mother of his 2 children. According to reports, the altercation involved physical contact consistent with battery charges. While the domestic abuse charge itself was a misdemeanor, the real problem was that it represented a violation of his probation terms from the 2003 conviction. As a registered sex offender, Mystikal was required to stay arrest-free. On April 16, 2012, Judge Tony Marabella sentenced him to 90 days, crediting him with 9 days already served, which meant he would serve an additional 81 days at East Baton Rouge Parish Jail. It was another setback, another headline, another stain on what was supposed to be his redemption arc. He was released in August 2012 and attempted to resume his career, but the pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. The next chapter in Mystikal's legal saga began in October 2016, following a concert in Shreveport, Louisiana. A woman accused him of sexually assaulting her at a location near the Horseshoe Casino. The allegations were severe: first-degree rape and second-degree kidnapping, accusations that included claims of choking or strangulation during the encounter. On August 21, 2017, Mystikal turned himself in to authorities after a warrant was issued. He was booked into Caddo Parish Jail, and his bond was initially set at $2 million before being raised to $3 million. 2 co-defendants were also charged. Averweon, Lil Hood, Darnell Holman faced identical charges, while Tanichia Mouton was charged with accessory after the fact. What followed was an agonizing 18 months of pretrial detention. Mystikal remained behind bars from August 2017 until February 2019, unable to post the $3 million bond until he secured funds from a music advance. When he finally made bail and was released, he faced house arrest with monitoring while awaiting trial. And then, in December 2020, something unexpected happened. The Caddo Parish District Attorney resubmitted the case to a second grand jury with additional evidence that had not been available initially. After reviewing all the material, the grand jury issued a no true bill, effectively dismissing all charges due to insufficient evidence. Mystikal had spent 18 months in jail for charges that would ultimately be dropped. In interviews following the dismissal, he maintained his innocence, described the experience as a recurring bad dream, and acknowledged that the encounter was consensual. He expressed relief that he was cleared without needing any external intervention. It seemed, once again, like Mystikal might have a chance to rebuild. He was free. The charges were dropped. He could move forward. But as history would cruelly demonstrate, the worst was yet to come. The evening of July 30th, 2022 would mark the beginning of what may be the final chapter of Mystikal's story as a free man. According to probable cause, affidavits filed by the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office, a woman who had been casually dating Mystikal spent the night at his home on Oakland Drive in Prairieville, Louisiana. That Saturday evening, Mystikal allegedly noticed approximately $100 cash missing from his bedroom dresser. He accused her of theft, confiscated her car keys and cell phone, and refused to let her leave. What allegedly followed was nothing short of horrifying. According to court documents, Mystikal told the woman they had to pray the bad spirits away and forced her to kneel and pray with him for an extended period. After she showered and came out wrapped in a towel, he allegedly ripped the towel off, dragged her by the hair, threw her onto the bedroom floor, straddled her, choked her until she nearly blacked out, and sexually assaulted her. After the assault, he allegedly poured rubbing alcohol over her body, claiming he was cleansing her. The victim sustained visible bruising to her face, neck, arms, and back, along with abrasions on her knees, consistent with being thrown to the floor. She went to the hospital, where a rape kit was performed. On July 31st, 2022, Mystikal was arrested and booked into the Ascension Parish Jail. The charges were staggering in their severity: first-degree rape, felony, life offense; false imprisonment, felony; simple robbery, felony; domestic abuse battery; strangulation, felony; simple criminal damage to property, misdemeanor; possession of Schedule II, methamphetamine, felony; possession of Schedule, marijuana, misdemeanor; possession of drug paraphernalia, misdemeanor. During the search warrant executed at his residence, authorities found marijuana, a crystal substance that tested positive for methamphetamine and drug paraphernalia. In his initial statement to detectives, Mystikal admitted that sexual activity occurred but claimed it was completely consensual. He acknowledged judge taking her keys and phone and making her pray with him to get the devil up out of her. He denied choking her or ripping off the towel. The legal proceedings that followed have stretched on for years. In August 2022, bond was denied, with the judge citing Mystikal's 2003 sexual battery conviction and the 2017 rape case as evidence of a pattern. In October 2022, a grand jury indicted him on all original charges. Here's where the situation becomes truly dire. Because of his 2003 conviction for sexual battery, Mystikal is classified as a repeat offender under Louisiana law. Convicted of first-degree rape, he faces a mandatory sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. There is no wiggle room, no possibility of a reduced sentence. Life means life. In April 2023, a judge reduced his bond to $3 million, the highest ever in Ascension Parish for this type of charge. In June 2023, he posted the bond and was released with strict conditions: GPS ankle monitor, no contact with the victim, no social media, and he must remain in Louisiana. But the case continues to wind through the courts. The trial has been delayed multiple times, primarily at the request of the defense. As of November 2025, Mystikal appeared in court and was denied bond once again. The judge determined that he posed too great a flight risk and that the severity of the charges warranted his continued detention. A trial has been scheduled for March 30th, 2026, expected to last approximately 1 week. Another hearing is set for January 21st, 2026. His attorney, Joel Pierce, has maintained that Mystikal is innocent and that the evidence will show the encounter was consensual. The prosecution, for their part, appears determined to pursue the case aggressively. That brings us to the end of this video. For more interesting videos like this, click on the cards on your screen.